When I go into a deep meditative trance, sometimes I get visions of what it's like from the perspective of higher dimensions looking down at Earth. And these are really hard for me to explain because there's not really any language that we have on Earth to use to describe these. And so I always ask my team, can you give me something to help me describe this? And so today I want to share with you a little bit of the perspective of what Source Energy God and the higher dimensions are seeing when they look down at humanity and all the stuff that is taking place right now. And this is kind of a difficult thing for me to like dive into because there I am, we're all multidimensional beings. Like there's no one that's really like more special than another here on earth. We just have so much separation from our truth, from higher self, from source, that we have this idea that there are like above, below, side, behind, in front. Like we have so many labels and identities and beliefs and limited thinking in this realm that everything feels separate and as if it has a different, like, this is good and this is bad. And so when I tune into these things and I get these messages about the perspective from a higher frequency, particularly the way that I tend to tune in is from around the 12th dimension, which is the dimension that the wisdom keepers, the team that I channel is resides in, is what they have said. Um, their perspective is very different than ours. And it is, as a human being that is multidimensional thinking, it is difficult for me to look at the human things going on and from the higher perspective. However, it does give me a little bit of peace in the storm that we are going through to have these perspectives. And I'm hoping by sharing this that it also brings you a little bit of peace in getting a perspective of what is taking place here on earth from the higher frequencies and dimensions, from spirit's point of view. So, one of the things that I want to talk about is the volunteers that have come to Earth. Now, if you know anything about the three ways of volunteers, like if you've studied Dolores Cannon at all, you know that there are beings of light that have volunteered to come to Earth to help assist humanity in the ascension. Now, these three ways of volunteers um, started to come in probably 50s, 60s. Like we had different rounds of volunteers coming in. I came in 80. And I believe I was attempted to come in before that, but the body that I was supposed to get in, I think, was damaged. And so I ended up coming into this body instead. So, but I know that there's many of us here on earth that came as light workers, as healers, as star seeds to help with the ascension. And many of us that are in that place of being volunteers, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's having like contradictions of, well, this is very human, what we're experiencing here on earth, and it's very divine at the same time. So, for the perspective that I'm getting today to share to you from the higher frequencies, I want to tap into both of these different ways of seeing it. And this is actually kind of difficult for me to share. I think I said it already, but I'm going to say it again just because it truly is. But I have seen visions of the earth and the people particular that were volunteers that came here to assist in the roles that they're playing. And What I really want to challenge you in when I share this is to get out of your ego. Let that part of you step aside for just a second and see if you can tap into a higher consciousness mind. Now, when I do this, the way I do it is I literally, it's almost like you zone out a little bit. It's like it is kind of a dissociation, to be honest. Like I kind of disassociate myself from the ego, from my human comprehension, and I imagine that my ability to think shifts about 10 to 15 levels higher. And I start to imagine I'm looking at things from a perspective of like a bird, or like even spirit is really where I go. And so allow yourself to do that as I talk about these things. Okay, so the first thing I am going to address are the people that are in that are having a lot of things happen in their life, such as being involved with ICE. Those who are in ICE and those who are being harmed by ICE or are being put in basically concentration camps is the way I see it. Those who are being targeted, really, to be honest. And at this point in our journey, really everybody is a target, to be truthful with that. So there's not really any distinct like group of people that are targeted. There is like the language being used around this is around um immigrants and people that aren't supposed to be here, drug addicts, people that are bringing drugs in, all that kind of stuff. That is the language that is being used. However, the harm is against humanity. And we can look at the different groups of people, but the truth of that is that when one person is harmed, we're all harmed. And so from that perspective, I was communicating with source, and I got this message quite a while ago, and I've just kind of held on to it because of the difficulty of it. Is spirit has shown me these souls that are being targeted and how their soul made contracts to come to earth at this particular time to play a role that would be really hard for humanity. They basically came to earth for the purpose of being in the position of having this happen so they could be used to help change the earth. Because the interesting thing is, we humans have a tendency to live inside this box in our mind. We have this idea that the world kind of revolves around us. And where I live and what I do in my community and all that, we usually don't move much further out of that perspective than where we are located. Like, I think the beautiful thing about the internet and social media is that it's unified it more than just where you are in the world. It's brought in a broader perspective of there's humans all over the earth. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, we are all one. We're all human. We might speak different languages, we might have different skin tones, we might have different perspectives, but the reality of it is we're all human. And from that human perspective, source energy looks at that and says that is beautiful. The contrast, the different ways of humans presenting themselves here on earth is beautiful because it represents God's energy. It represents the frequency of God. And it actually um, is a beautiful way to see God's creativity and all the vastness that this energy can create by creating multi different colors, multi different um, energies, multi different frequencies, and that all being projected into the human experience. And so, from that point of view, it is magnificent and beautiful. And that point of view also has the greater, deeper broader understanding that the human experience is temporary, that it is a experience that we come to learn from, and an experience that is is a temporary, where our soul purposely chooses to come to earth and have an experience in order to learn from it. But the beautiful thing in that is we also choose to come and have experience to help one another learn. So the way I see the universe, the way I see humanity, the way I actually see everything is through like a web of light. When I look in my mind's eye at the energy field of humanity, or really anything, I see like a big web of light. So if you have a hard time picturing that in your mind, just imagine seeing a big spider web. And the spider web is literally made of energy. And each little part of the spider web holds a different frequency, but it's all one. It is all the same web. So if you look at it from that perspective, that means that what happens to you impacts me. But depending on where you are on the web is how it impacts and affects you. So if something were to come and happen in my own home, it's going to impact me greatly. If it happens in my neighbor's home, it will impact me, but not as much. If it happens in my family's home that might be across town, that's going to impact me. If it happens in my city, it's going to impact me. If it happens in the city next to me, I will probably have an acknowledgement about it. I will probably hear about it, but the reality of it is it's not in a same deep emotional way going to impact me as much as something that's closer to me. But the truth of it is, if I see this all as a big web of light, that is still connected to me. It just might be a couple points away from me. And so what happens in the energetic field of the web of consciousness, in the unity consciousness from spirit's point of view, is that something that happens over, in a city an hour from me, whether I believe it or not, is going to impact me in some way in the energetic field. Not necessarily in my physical reality, but in the energetic reality of who I am, it will and can impact me. And this is why collective grief, collective frequency, and when things are happening on the earth, such as what they're happening right now, we all feel it on some level, whether we are directly involved or not. So we can look at humanity as on two different timelines. And based on the timeline that you're on is the time or the frequency that you're kind of going to be most impacted by. But the truth of it is that all timelines are also connected. Like there's not, we think of like linear, but spirit looks at like things as a one frequency. So it's not necessarily about an us versus them. It's a quantum consciousness, energetic consciousness of against ourselves. When somebody hurts another person, we are hurting ourselves. And this is why this is so devastating for the collective right now, because we are all feeling the impact, whether we want to admit it or not. If you watch me on any other social media platforms, I've shared several times that, Spirit has shown me that this is all part of the ascension, and it's the collapse before the rebuild. Now, collapses don't feel good. Collapses are very messy. They're very scary. They can bring a lot of fear and destruction that is really not wanted, to be honest. But from source energy's point of view, collapse is a divine orchestration. It's a reordering. And so when they show me these different, going back to particularly the ICE and the victims of ICE, they show me these people that are the victims as being kind of the heroes of this movement that we're in of moving in a new era, and that they were the souls that said, I'll go down there and I will play this role so that I can help other humans learn how to love better. Now, the people that are playing the role of being an ice, these are people that have disconnected from their intuition, their soul purpose, their higher selves in such a way that they've had to almost become numb to the energy of love in some type of way. Now, the hard thing about this is that love exists in all forms. There is no separation from love whatsoever. There's just different frequencies of love. And the deepest hate can be the deepest love. It's just very separate from source energy God. So if you didn't see my video, I posted, I'm sure probably 3 months ago on TikTok, Spirit gave me a vision where I was like looking out over a mountain range when I was visiting some friends in Seattle. And I began to see the word love written across the mountains. And what they showed me was that when you get into the lower frequencies, that love becomes so dense you can't see it. It almost it creates itself in a form that it can only be expressed in that lower frequency. It is so dense that it doesn't present as love. It presents as anger and hate and bitterness and rage. But according to source, that is love attempting to find itself again. And the higher frequency that you go, the more you shift into your frequency, the more you rise up, the more the lighter the frequency becomes, the love begins more expanded. It opens up. And so the only way I can really explain this is if you write on a piece of paper, you write just a big love at the top, like clear across the top. And then the next line, you write it in a line, but big. And then the more you write down the paper, the smaller love gets. And before you know it, you're writing love on top of itself because it's so dense. So what we're trying to do with humanity is shift that love up into the higher frequency so it's more expanded and more open, more conscious of how it connects and relates to all things and to each other. But because of Earth being a dense frequency and a planet that spirits come to experience duality of light and darkness, we experience love in some of the most horrendous ways, to be honest. And it's really difficult because we want to experience, like we come from higher consciousness. We come from expanded love. So as we're here, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel good to have that type of love because it's not the real love we come from. It's almost like the most, the only way I can think of it is like if I could draw a bubble of my thought, like if you see a thought bubble come out of my mind, the very edge of that thought bubble would be where we are in the universe. Like we are the furthest thought from God in the human form. And everything else kind of moves in towards the thought of God. So the third and the first, second, third dimensions are the furthest thought of God. Then you move closer to the thought of God. So everything is God. Everything is God's thought. So these people that are causing this damage and destruction, they're also playing a role of source energy God. And it doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it a good thing. However, this is also the contract that they signed. So if you're having a hard time hearing this as much as I'm having a hard time sharing it, I'm with you. I've also been thinking, I got some pretty clear messages. I did share these over on, I shared this over on TikTok about Renee's death and with ICE. And I've heard some other intuitives get the exact same message. And I don't know what happened, but I was sitting in my living room one night and I was just thinking about Renee. And because I'm a medium, sometimes spirits will show up. But I felt like her spirit just suddenly showed up and I heard the words, I was a sacrificial lamb. I came as for this purpose and reason to be the sacrifice for humanity, to show them how to love better. And this rippled throughout the entire world. And humanity has woken up, and they are continuing to wake up to the gaslighting that we have been under from those who have been in government and in authority. And we're in a time and a shift here on earth where we're moving out of the density of the age of Pisces and we're moving into the clarity of the age of Aquarius, moving away from the density of hierarchy, control of the ego, and into a higher conscious understanding of unity and love. And the interesting thing about this shift is that we are becoming more individual. And individual has had a bad rap in the age of Pisces because being individual and sticking out and making your own path and doing your own thing was seen as a threat because there was this energy built around you follow me, you trust me, you do what I say, kind of a thing. You fall in line behind the rest of the humans and you do what other humans do because that's the way you live as a human. And so this is why you're seeing the younger generations right now starting to break away from the old ways of doing. They're not staying at a job for 30, 40 years, 50 years, however long, and retiring from it. They're getting into a position and they're saying, this isn't aligned for me, so I'm leaving. And they're actually beginning to show us the way back into our individual paths, back into our soul purpose, back into what we're here to do on earth. And many of them that are doing this, whether they realize this or not, are the starseed volunteers that came to bring us back into that frequency of stepping into our individual path without having to follow our parents or the society's programming or the ideas of you have to be this to be successful. They're venturing out on their own and creating their own way of being. And imagine, this is the way that I see this. And it's so interesting. Imagine looking down at Earth from Source's perspective and seeing a big puzzle. Like, and all the pieces are scattered all over the earth. And each human is attempting to find their place in that puzzle. And before now, all the humans were trying to fit into a place that they didn't belong. So the puzzle wasn't really put together. There may have been a couple spaces where it was, neatly fitting together, but because humanity wasn't really in alignment with their higher self or the unity consciousness, they kind of just forced themselves to fit. Like, it's not that they didn't go into this spot. It's just like one of their little, side things was like forcing itself inside of the puzzle. And so we were all kind of like lopsided trying to fit together. And everybody really actually felt comfortable, but there's, that's just what it is. That's just how you get through your life. That's like, it's interesting for me to think from a higher perspective, like, you come to earth just to not fit in. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, but what we're getting back into is finding our space in the puzzle and where we fit, like actually fit. And I see the puzzle as we move forward becoming very like put together and flat, and like each person is like, this is my purpose and this is my purpose and I'm going to walk in this. And when everybody starts walking their individual path, the puzzle piece starts to get put together. And before we know it, everything's in unity. Everything's in support. And because I found my place, you can find your place. Because if one person is out of their place, then every other person around them is going to feel out of place too. So it's like we are finding our individual path. But if you come out of it from that individual perspective and you pull out to source energy, God's perspective, you see the whole thing. It's unity consciousness. Is everybody believing in themselves, but for the purpose of the greater good? Like, my job is here to support the collective energy in finding their way back to love. And your job could be, I'm going to go and create art that brings joy, whatever that is. It's like we are finding the soul path that we're here to walk at this time. So, in that, all these little puzzle pieces that we have seen out of place are the ICE agents, are the victims of the ICE ages, are the Trump, are the administration, are the court system, they're all like trying to control the way the puzzle works. And this is why the puzzle it's never fit right. It's always been uncomfortable. So imagine God takes his hands and puts his hands down on earth, and it just picks up the puzzle and it starts to scatter. That's what we're seeing right now. And some of the people came particularly to help with the scattering, and other people came to help with putting it back together. So you have both. You have the breaking apart and you have the putting back together. This is why you see people that are standing up and starting to teach about these. Like, you have more and more people waking up and having spiritual awakenings and sharing their truths than we ever have on earth before. And these are the people that are kind of leading the movement. Those who have been on this journey for a while are kind of leading this movement of putting things back into place. But the hard thing in this is that we're trying to put them back into place at the same time that they're falling apart. And so what I keep hearing my spirit team say, the wisdom keepers keep saying to me is, trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. Hope is coming. You can hold on to the hope. The puzzle pieces are finding their space, and there's evidence of it if you look for it. But it's really tempting to look at the destructing of the puzzle and not the putting together of the puzzle. And because we are the creators of our reality, and every thought that we have, our energy, our belief system, what we hold in our frequency is the creator of our reality, we have to reorganize that part of ourselves too. We have to reorganize the way we believe and think and see each other and see ourselves in order to find the right puzzle, to find where we fit in the puzzle. And so we have these different waves of humanity that have come in, these different volunteers of starseeds that have come in that have, play different roles. Some of them are literally just supposed to be frequency. Like, there are humans that I know that are not really meant to teach. They're not meant to be in the spotlight. They're not meant to, talk about things out, in front of people, because they're supposed to just hold the frequency of light for their community. And we don't see that on a tangible, logical level. We don't see the energy that we hold, but we just have to believe that is the truth. But that is why it is important that the frequency that you hold is pure and of love and grounded, because your wave of energy and frequency impacts what's around you. So I want to read you something out of this book, The Map of Consciousness Explained. And this is a book by David Hawkins. And I read this book probably a year or so ago, and it really impacted me. It is a very good book. So I highly recommend this on top of my own book that I think you should also have. But this is a great book to understand frequency, energy, and the consciousness of humanity, and how important is that we hold high frequency, and how our energy and our mindset and what we believe is going to impact everything around us. And this is why I'm saying those who hold light are highly valuable and important, even if they don't say anything. So on page 38 in this book, David writes that, and I'm just going to start. If you want to read more of it, you can grab the book on your own. But 85% of the world's population collaborates under 200, which accounts for the vast suffering of the planet. So what he's talking about is the different frequencies of our consciousness, of our energy, how we vibrate in the world. And I will put up a map over here of the map of consciousness so that you can see what I'm talking about. 85% of the world is under 200, which accounts for the vast suffering on the planet. So if you could imagine the people that are doing the raids, the ICE agents, Trump, like all these people, they are vibrating at a very, very low frequency. And according to the map of consciousness, it is, I'm actually going to pull it up. I have it here. The map of consciousness, 200 is around courage. Now, the interesting thing is right above courage, you're going to find neutrality. And this is where we're kind of, it seems like a negative place to be, because if you're neutral, then that means you don't care about something. But if you're neutral, one of the things that he says in this book is that if you're neutral, you're not able to be controlled by anything outside of yourself. People that are neutral can't be controlled because they're just like, whatever you say, like, this is your belief, it's not mine. I don't have to hold the same energy. I don't have to have the same frequency as you. So that neutral frequency is kind of the goal where we would like to get humanity, but we'd also like to get them a little bit higher eventually. But here's the beauty of those who are the star seeds and the volunteers on Earth, is that this goes on to say humankind, thankfully, is saved from self-destruction by virtue of the fact that the majority collaborating at positive levels counterbalance the weight of negativity. Now, if you go back and you listen to my video about starseeds and angels and how Spirit has shown me in my mind's eye that they're grid workers, they come on Earth to hold the frequency of love, because without them, humanity would destroy itself. So we are here to hold light and energy so humanity doesn't explode itself. And it still gives it the opportunity to have free will to work through this dimension, this lower frequency dimension. So for example, one individual at the level of love, which is 500, I'll have that up here, counterbalances 750,000 individuals below 200. The significance of each person's inner evolution, that then becomes obvious. So if you are a starseed, if you are a light worker and you think you're doing nothing when you meditate, when you go on a hike, when you pray, when you hold light, when you encourage, when you smile, when you just be you, your most authentic self, unapologetically, you are impacting your frequency. When you hold the frequency of love, you get into that consciousness of love, you are impacting 750,000 other energies around you. I want you to think about how powerful that is. So here's another thing I wanted to share out of this book. And this is going to be on page 200 if you do decide that you want to read this or get this. So this is actually talking about, if I remember right, this is about, the healing power of loving groups. So those of you that are attending my retreat in March, we will be impacted by this when we're there. But So this is like group meditation. This is like retreats. This is like when people get together with one conscious desire in the same way, and how much we impact things. And you know what Spirit's telling me right now? Those of you that watch me that are involved with my healer circle and who work with me individually and are coming to the retreat, if you remember, Spirit told me to shift my retreat to where I live. I live in Kansas, but we're going to meet right on the Kansas and Missouri border for the retreat. And um, Spirit told me there was a significance about that, being here in the very, very middle of the US for the retreat. And now this makes sense that I'm saying this to you. So you can be excited about that. But it says, around and through the physical body is an energy body that vibrates with the frequency level of that energy. So our body, so when you're meditating, when you're clearing your energy, when you're doing work, your body is impacted, but your aura is impacted too. And we don't realize how big our aura is. Your aura is as big as your house and beyond. Like you are, I say this lovingly, but you're ginormous. So you are a ginormous energy. The higher the vibration, the greater the power. The vibrations at the higher levels of consciousness on the map of consciousness, so looking at this map of consciousness, have much more power than the vibrations of the levels of below 200. It is not necessarily to believe in God. All that is necessary is to sit in a room with people sending out the healing energy, and one will pick up the energy of love from the other. By analog, if we sit in the sun, we cannot help but be warmed. So by you holding this frequency of being a volunteer, being a light worker, by being a starseed, and you keep your focus on that, you are going to be impacting the whole world. So go back to that thought of everything's a web of light and everything is connected. Imagine where you live and the frequency you're holding there. And then in the city next to you, there's another star seed. And then in the city next to you is another star seed. And then in a city, so all over the world are these lights that are popping up and is impacting that area. Now, this light is exposing the darkness that is on the earth at this time. And that's why it feels so chaotic. Because all these lower frequencies, when you look down through this through pride, anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame, when you see these lower frequencies, we see this happening in society. There were points in our lives in humanity, probably before some of us were even born, some of us probably did see this and experience this, like me growing up in the 80s and 90s. There was destruction and there were things happening on earth, but we were never aware of it on the level that we are now. And I think, and I say this lovingly, I think the beautiful thing about this is that not only is it exposing it, but it's bringing unity too. Like by us being able to communicate with each other from around the world. Like I know without the internet, without Zoom, without the ability to communicate through social media, I would have never met the people in my healer circle. I would have never met the people in my Ascension membership. I would have never met some of my clients. So the unity consciousness is there. It's just we tend to look at what is not the unity consciousness instead of what is, and we get distracted by it. And that's the human mind, that's the ego having this desire to look at something that it doesn't like to. Why do you think scary movies have been created? Why do you think news was created? If you think about how society was created and built, everything was built to control the mind of the ego. The higher mind cannot be controlled. It just is. That's the beauty of it, is when you hit that 250 hertz or that frequency and you get to neutrality, then you start moving through willingness and acceptance and reason and love and joy and peace and enlightenment, which 1% of humanity will likely get to enlightenment at all. What we really do is we vibrate back and forth between all these. And the thing is there's going to be time you're going to drop all the way down into grief, and that's totally okay. But once you're able to shift your frequency into a higher frequency, once you reach joy, once you reach peace, that frequency is always going to be residing in your field and you can always access it again. But we have to train ourselves to get into that frequency. You have to keep working towards that. We have to, through the meditation, through self-love, through affirmations, through changing and healing and working with our energy field, we pull in more of that frequency that we can maintain. And then we get to the point where we can move up and down through this without being impacted or by being stuck in a certain one, and rise back up into it and impact the collective with that higher frequency. So I just wanted to share this perspective because Source, when I look at the earth and what's going on from this perspective, it gives me hope. Like, it gives me the clarity of, we got this. We're going to get through this. It's just a lot of puzzle pieces are being destroyed right now so we can build a new one, so we can put it back the right way. And I think, one of the things that, the vision I got was Source energy showed me energy moving in and out of itself. And the only way I can describe this is like I saw the yin and yang, light and darkness merging with each other and creating energy. But the light and darkness was moving in a flow. And as this shift of consciousness and humanity rose, it became lighter and lighter and lighter. It doesn't mean that the darkness went away. It means that the control of it shifted and that it became lighter and lighter. And the beauty of it is the light part, like if you imagine like an actual like white light and then a dark light, like a black, the black gets like to be grayish, but the white gets whiter and whiter and whiter and whiter and whiter. Like there's beyond the whiteness that I can explain. And so that is what's taking place on Earth right now. And this is why I know this is a really long video, but I wanted to share this because I hope this can bring whoever comes across this a little bit of hope that even though right now it appears we're going in the wrong direction, we're not. And if you are here as a volunteer, you have an important role, even if it's sitting in your house meditating. Do not neglect that. Hold on to that. Believe in that. And carry that with you wherever you go, whether it's the grocery store or to visit your family. You have a role in this just as everyone else does. So I will leave it at that for now. And I hope this was supportive of you. If you have any questions, comments, anything, please leave it below. I would love if you would like, subscribe, share, whatever that is that you feel called to, so that you can help my messages get out more and my channel to grow. I send you all the universal love today. Namaste.